Bill Maher on the Ben Shapiro show. All right. Blunt rotation. Us three, the three of us, me, Ben, Bill Maher, and I know Bill smokes. God, that's just about the worst. That's just about the worst thing. I'd do it. 100% I'd do it. I want to see Ben Shapiro high and see what he, I don't know, squawks about. I just, this isn't swag, is it? Do you think he's actually a stoner? Can you imagine Ben Shapiro using, like, stoner terms? Like, hey, hypothetically speaking, what if you passed me that fat blunt? Anyway, so Ben High talks normal speed. I think he'd talk more. It makes people talky. It makes people chatty. All right. This is an endurance test. Can we make it through the Bill Maher Ben Shapiro show tonight, chat? I don't know if we can. Gamba? You want a gamba on this? To see if we get through it? Under. How about this? 30 minutes over or under. We'll gamba on it. 30 minutes over or under. Does Jake make it 30 minutes into this video? Question mark. Yes. No. All right. Gamba. It's time. Get your gambas in. All right, in the meantime, let's start it.
All people talk about is politics all the time. What is Facebook? It's arguing with some kid you went to high school with. You were in chem lab together. And now you have to talk about who's on the Supreme Court. And that's, I think, what is tearing America apart. Because there's a million things you could talk about that aren't political. And you find out, oh, this person is not that different from me.
You know the crowd is not with you.
I got that impression, yeah.
And
I've joined Bill Maher on his show a couple of times in the last couple of years. It's always a blast.
We're having such a good time, and now we're gonna fight. And now I'm gonna make you fight again, but it's okay.
In this episode, Bill returns the favor. His long-running show, Real Time with Bill Maher, hits its 20th year on the air next year. It's been Bill's vehicle to challenge and often mock politics of the day from his liberal perspective. But Bill's one of those old-school liberals you don't see too much of these days. Progressive ideas on taking care of people and the environment, but also an adamant defender of free speech and a critic of wokeness, meaning his commentary and joking about news and politics often hits the left, too.
The Andrew Cuomo death watch. Biden called on him to resign. Nancy Pelosi called on him to resign.
Why does he think... So, it's fascinating that the perspective that both of them seem to have is that the wacky, loony lefties out here, where we are, we're big, like, Biden and Nancy Pelosi supporters? And we're Andrew Cuomo enjoyers? That's the woke left? Huh. That seems not accurate to my experience. Anybody in chat really fuck with Andrew Cuomo? You're like, damn, of the Cuomos, it's Andrew. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a thing. What? Look at us getting slapped down on the left.
Chuck Schumer, yes, called on
Chuck Schumer. Oh,
resign. Anthony Weiner called for a double date. That's
well-known leftist Anthony Weiner, who everyone likes here.
Kind of guy.
Given the Russia and Ukraine news
That's the libs.
right now, in this episode, we revisit President Trump's presence on the world stage and his relationship with Russia versus that of President Biden.
Too.
We'll also discuss left-wing media misinformation and dishonesty on COVID the last couple of years, and what it would take for Bill to cross that political aisle and finally vote Republican.
Oh boy. All right, I think we should do these by topic, so maybe we'll make it through this. I don't know. Let's see. All right, this is overproduced dog shit. That looks like that was terrible, Ben. Don't you own a media company? Do you not have one person with any directorial experience? That is terrible. That was actually bad. That looked like something I'd see on the fucking CW, bro. And it's loud.
Hey, and welcome. This is the Ben Shapiro Show Sunday Special. This show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. I talk about them every single show. Why haven't you gotten a VPN yet? Get ExpressVPN.
You know what? I'm really glad that even the Daily Wire is scuffed a little bit. So I don't want to hear any of this shit about leftist audio ever again, okay? We're doing our best out here without the backing of multi-million-dollar corporations and, we didn't have hedge fund money backing us. I mean, we didn't have trust funds growing up. All right, fascist audio. That's right, fascist audio. You take that, Ben. Leftist audio is fine. We just have fewer resources. Yeah, I sound good, of course.
VPN right now at expressvpn.com/Ben. Speaking of which, what do big tech and big government have in common? They both want to silence any dissenting voices. Let's say you're a proud gun owner. You want to talk on social media about the right to bear arms. Well, chances are very, very good that your post will be flagged by a content moderator. You might end up on some kind of government watch list.
That's not... What the fuck are you talking about? I have talked about the right to bear arms many times. What? I'm pro Second Amendment. I wish we could amend the amendment a little bit, like an amendment to an amendment. Like updating the language, the right to bear reasonable arms and then determine reasonable. Sure, yeah. Or just oversight in general. If you just commit to some sort of oversight, that's it. I still want communities to have guns. What do you think? I want us to not have anything for the I was gonna say the cops, but they're out here helping guys. So not them. All the other criminal organizations that break into your homes without warrants. All the other criminal organizations that harass you most. For those people that you must defend yourselves against. For people that infringe upon your rights, that's what the Second Amendment is for, okay? And if those people happen to be wearing blue while they infringe those rights, well, then so be it. I mean the Crips, of course. All right, I'm just joking. I don't want to get into obviously, I'm not a member of the Bloods. I'm a Crip, so team. That was a friendly fire.
If you want to fight back against having your voice censored by both big tech and big government, I recommend ExpressVPN. See, the problem with big tech is that not only do they attempt to...
No. We're gonna skip on past that, okay? Well, look at him go. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate it.
What's VPN?
Well, that's where they disguise your internet address.
Lost, Ben. Yeah, we just started and I'm lost.
It's the Russians can't monitor your internet traffic and then bomb your home, I think. I think that's the basic idea. So, how's Florida treating you?
I love Florida. I'm here to do a special, HBO stand-up special, which I did the last 2 days, Friday and Saturday, and here we are on Sunday. I chose Florida to do. I could have done it anywhere in the country. First of all, I was afraid of COVID protocols that were going to be onerous, so I was like, I'm not going to do it in a blue state.
Oh boy.
But it turned out there was a lot of protocols last night from the city of Miami and the theater. There's so many people with their hands in the protocol pie now. The unions can get involved, the network. So it's not just the government.
Wouldn't want the union to get involved in any sort of conversation about their labor, huh? Who dat know you? Thanks, Phone.
CDC, everybody who wants to indicate how much better a person they are than you by showing how much more safety they can get. Not that I honestly think we need any of this now, but that's why I chose to do it in Florida, because I've been to Florida a couple of times. It was the first place I went after I got back on the road, I think about a year ago.
I wish we didn't need it, okay? I know it feels like it's been a long time, and it has. But the reason it's been a long time is because, simply put, you didn't do it good once. You didn't do a good quarantine one time. And that's all it would have taken, man. That's all it would have fucking taken. But instead we're just doing just anti-COVID shit, man. Like it's just gonna kill so many fucking people. Eventually, the only people that are going to be left standing are the people that were like, hey, we don't have to, do nothing, but we could do reasonable shit. All the things that any left-leaning people want to do about COVID is like, hey, maybe we should, do masks and encourage vaccines so that we can interact with people. And they're like, no, none of that. And we're like, well, then we have to quarantine. And they're like, no, not that either. It's like, well, then you're going to get sick, and other people that don't deserve it are going to get sick. And he's like, I don't care. Fuck them. That sucks, man. That's such a bad... it's a bad way to go about
And I've been
shit.
back a couple of other times for gigs here, and there just was much more of a feeling. And I know...
No. He loves Florida. I used to live in Florida. It's fine. It's fine. It's not great. And if you have money, I'm sure it's dope as fuck, though. Honestly.
People who live here who say, yes,
I was poor as shit when I lived in
Florida. We never
Florida.
acted like this was the end of the world. This is not the Andromeda strain. Yes, it's a serious thing that we should respect and take seriously. But, Florida had the reputation, well-deserved, for life goes on. And so that's why I chose to do it in Florida. And that's why, that's the one thing I must say. I thought I like that better.
Yeah.
I have a lot of quarrels about how this coronavirus was handled. You can respect it and have compassion for the people who suffered from it and still have, as I do, and I have made this very known to my audience, who mostly doesn't like me for it, that I don't think it was handled the right way.
Yeah, for us, for my family, we actually moved mid-COVID from LA to Florida. And this...
Florida has no state income tax. I'm assuming it has a lot to do with that. I don't know how you can say that you think you should take it seriously, but also you respect the model that Florida took. Like, what? They didn't do anything. They had so many cases. Oh, God. So many deaths. I think, didn't Florida per capita lead the nation in deaths? It was quite a bit.
This is one of the reasons. In LA, they shut down all the public parks. You couldn't take your kid outdoors. And then there were a bunch of riots. And it was like, well, if I could take my kids rioting, it would have been okay. But I couldn't take my kids rioting. So I had to be double quarantined in my home. I was quarantined for the virus and then quarantined because there were riots outside my door. And it was like, I'm getting out of here.
One of the first editorials I did when I had to be doing the show from my backyard was about how, just in general, I think we should handle any disease, but especially this one, more internally, not just externally. Yes, there is that element, externally meaning vaccines. Okay, what? Yes, I'm glad we have the vaccine. What? I personally would not have wanted to get it, but I did. Took one for the team. I would have rather had my own immune system handle this one.
That's not how your immune system works, Bill. What? Dude, he's a conservative. He's not a liberal. Like, what the fuck? At best, he might have some libertarian stances that seems consistent. Libertarian? Like, what the fuck? This doesn't make any sense.
No, to me, it's a case-by-case basis. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just think everybody's different.
You're not special, Bill. You needed the vaccine.
Now, there are some diseases out there, I would fight you for the vaccine. Okay? But this one, because America is so unhealthy, that's the essential part we don't address. So unhealthy to begin with that it's great we have a vaccine, because that is what is saving the lives of everyone smart enough to get the vaccine.
Do you think maybe broad access to healthcare would help? And I realize that I'm pretty sure he's for single payer. So I hope he starts advocating for that. Special population. It sounds, but this is sounding a little bit elitist. We'll see where this goes.
Who was not in good health to begin with.
He's just anti the fatties, you know, which is fine, I guess. But like, he's been smoking. You get weed every day for years and years. Okay.
That certainly wouldn't have been my way to handle it.
So, I mean, you've been very vocal on this, and obviously you say your audience doesn't like you very much for it. Why do you think this became such a politicized point of view? Because what you're saying, I mean, you and I disagree on so much about politics, but on this sort of stuff, it seems like this is just the basic data, which is that for a lot of people who are obese, people who are older, people who have a prior immune problem, those people really, really needed the vaccine. If you were young and you were healthy, and if you're in decent shape, your chances of death from this were really not particularly high. We're not talking about the Black Death here with a 1/3 death ratio. And yet this turned into not only that you need to mask up forever, but that you needed to triple vax and mask post-triple vaccination. I mean, my view of this...
It just kills a lot of folks, guys. I don't know why. 70% of America's overweight. I mean, the way that they determine what is over or underweight is a little fucking stupid. But I definitely agree that we have, food is very convenient here, especially the shitty stuff. So, speaking of which, I would love some food. I have these bugles, but my fingers are too big in adulthood to make claws. Really? So, anyway, I don't know why we always have to do this thing where, but it only kills. What do you mean, bro? Like, I don't think it'd be a good thing for anyone to die just because they were old, because that's really who it kills. It does kill the fatties a little bit. Shout out fatties who survived it. We're still fucking going, aren't we, baby? Hey, we made it fucking through, boy. Can't take us all out, all right? But nonetheless, I still don't understand. Like, oh, they're old. Well, what do you mean? They don't deserve to fucking drown in their own lung fluid. What the fuck?
I was basically quarantined with my parents. My parents were 65, so I want to make sure they didn't get it. Mm-hmm. And so we basically holed up with them, and we didn't go outside in LA for a long time. And then the minute the vaccines were available, and we took the vaccines, my parents got them mainly. As soon as that was over, we were done. I mean, we had enough faith in what we were being told about the vaccine to figure, okay, we're done here. But following the data has become a bad thing, and you're labeled an anti-vaxxer even if you're pro-vax. I mean, I got double vax. My parents got triple vax. My wife, who's a doctor...
Because you don't advocate for the vaccine for people to get them. You don't. You actively tell people to do the opposite. Like, actively, he tells people to do the opposite. That's the point, Ben. You need to advocate for the thing that is in the best interest of the public health of the United States and your fellow fucking human beings. Like, that was the expectation that other humans had for you, and you failed and continue to do so. Is his wife a doctor? Wait, what?
Doctor is triple vaxxed, and we were labeled anti-vax anyway because we weren't saying that you triple vaxxed. My wife, who's a doctor, is triple vaxxed.
She's a doctor? I didn't know that was the thing.
We were labeled anti-vax anyway because we weren't saying that you should lose your job if you didn't vax.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of silly...
Do we have any information about her pussy? And if it's, like, what the state of it is? Whether it's wet or not? Because if there's two things I need to know about Ben Shapiro's wife, it's what her profession is and how's her pussy. All right, guys.
On both sides, a lot of bad information on both sides. I don't think the liberals liked it when I pointed out
The
that
liberals? Aren't you
I
that
think
or
it was
no, huh?
something like 41% of Democrats, when asked the question, I mean, and this was in the New York Times, they had Republican versus Democrat views on COVID. And
According to Abby's video that Hannah watched, Abby's P word is dry as well. Damn.
something like 41% of Democrats, when
family.
asked the key question, how many people who get COVID need to be hospitalized, thought it was over 50%, when it was, of course, around 1%. I mean, that's a crazy number. To be off that much about.
I mean, wouldn't that just be they're sort of misinformed? But at least what I don't. I just don't think that's that big a deal, I guess. What does he do you think? Does he think these people are paralyzed in fear, like with the vaccine? I don't know. Like, well, 1%. How many cases have we had? Hospitalizations. How many? Because there's 365. So we've had 1% of the population would be 36 million, which is not the case. But like, because not everybody gets it, obviously. But like, I if that information, right, is true, then why not advocate for just the education for the thing, right? Hundreds of millions of like it's a huge problem. It still remains it. I don't it's not artificial. People are dying. It's still happening. Yes, we are able to cope with it. I'm not saying I don't even want to be like trapped inside or anything. I don't think anybody wants to be. I don't like. I'm not asking for anyone to be shut down. I'm just asking for people to get vaccinated and wear masks. That's it. Like, if you choose to go to a place where there's a bunch of people, you know the risks. I've been to 2 or 3 sporting events, 3 of them, since COVID. Didn't get it a single time. Masked up until we were in our seats for the most part, and they were sort of spread out a little bit. It was, I mean, you know the risks though, right? I think it's fine to go on. What do they think we believe? It's so odd.
No wonder they think you need a mask everywhere. If you think half the people who get it need to go to the hospital and it's really 1%, how did they get that bad information in their head? And I said, Fox News and the right wing has a lot to answer for a lot of misinformation out there. I would put climate change as top of that list.
At least he's willing to say this stuff.
But the left-wing media should answer for that. How did your audience get that bad idea in their head that so many people need to go to the hospital who don't? And, as you started to say, I did an editorial about this about a month ago. Again, not well received by a lot of people, but I was just, again, giving the facts. We know who gets this and dies from this. Who gets it? Everybody. Everybody gets it, including if you've had the vaccine, which they were wrong about. Okay, they weren't trying to be wrong about it, but,
Wait, did they ever sell the vaccine as something that prevents you from getting COVID? I do not recall that. Like, what? I don't recall that ever. It'll prevent it? You say yes? I do not remember them saying the vaccine will prevent COVID. I remember them saying that it will lower your chance of death if you are hospitalized from it because it'll help you.
My overarching opinion was modern medicine, it's wonderful, but you're wrong about a lot. Stop being arrogant. Don't look at me like we've got the white coat on and the stethoscope around our neck. Just do whatever we say, because when have we ever been wrong? My answer, a lot. You've been wrong about a lot. Not because you're corrupt, although sometimes there's that too, but you've just been wrong about a lot, including a lot about this vaccine.
Like what? You're saying the medical consensus community, like the CDC, has been wrong about a lot? I don't recall. There's nothing wrong here. Why do old millionaires think that they know better than like folks that were educated for the thing that they're doing?
I mean, about this disease. So we know who gets it. Okay, 75% of the people who died over 65. Now that's sad. Death is always sad.
It's not just sad. What the fuck? It's a generation of human people that were meant to go through suffering, and it will have generational ripple effects throughout, like, the world. Not to mention any of the long-term symptoms survivors have, whether that's some form of PTSD or stress disorder or anxiety or something just from dealing with it, especially the healthcare workers. Or if it's actual just like, oh shit, I lost my fucking sense of smell. Some people still don't have it back. We don't know if it comes back. It hasn't been long enough. I would assume it does, but I guess I have no reason to believe that other than hope. The problem with it is that we could have like kept people from dying in the way that they were dying. We didn't have to have it be like this. We could have, if people would have just relaxed and been like, okay, we're going to... And frankly, the government didn't take care of it. I mean, Donald Trump, during the middle of an election, it couldn't happen in a worse time. And then Joe Biden's dumb. Like, if you simply would have given people money to stay at home, actual money, and not taken forever, and, like, came through on your promises and not shorted them on the fucking bill, where's my money, Joe? But, like, if you would have just done that, and been like, hey, we're working on a vaccine. I know this is rough. We'll try to, we'll support this when we can. We'll try to make life easier for everybody. We'll send everybody money. We're canceling student debt. Like, just give people a reason to have good faith in you, and then people would listen, or at least a lot of people would listen. We'd still have a contingent that wouldn't, but
I'm against death. I don't care who knows it. But, Earth is a timeshare. We can't all be here at the same time.
Oh, boy.
Some of us have to go to make room for others.
Jesus Christ, to make room. As if the people that died were in someone else's way. Insane. Actually insane. Like, it's funny to say, but it isn't the reality. It's actually fucking crazy.
People are going to die when they start being over 65. Something. I mean, you can't stop aging. Believe me, Ben, I've tried. So that's 75%. 99% unvaccinated. 99%. Where do you ever see that in any story about anything? And of course, 78% of the people who died or are hospitalized were obese. And that's another one that's not a popular opinion to talk about, but I feel like I have to because it's such a salient fact in this. If you just said to somebody, okay, there's an X factor in this, of 78% of the people who get it, this X factor accounts for 78%.
But, okay, so most of the people who got it were old, and of the people who got it, 78% of that population, most people who died from it were old. Of that population, most of those people were fat. That's old people being fat at the same time. That's sure there's some other people mixed in there, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. I'm a fatty boom balatti, okay? I got some junk in the trunk. We're not like humongous or anything. I'm not a tiny boy. You know what I mean? You gotta love the squoosh. Okay? I feel like I'd be fine. I feel like I would be fine if I got COVID. In the end. I don't feel like I would die from it. I don't want to get it. But my lungs are fine, dude. We're just thick. I don't think I'm dying from that. Maybe I do. I'm vaccinated, so I'm probably fine. But like, come on. Come on, dude. It's old people get chubby. If 65% of all the people that die from it are old, 78% of the people that die from it being chubby, seems to track. Obesity is a BMI over 24. That's like deluxe skinny. Wait. A BMI of 24. If I look at an image, what does that look like? Really? All right. I'm annoyed by this. Like a BMI of 24 is this individual who's not coming through in high quality, but 24 this individual. What are you talking about? Obese. Really? Okay, dude. All right, 24 is obese. I'm mad. Normal 24. Jeez. I didn't know there was a super. I thought morbid was the last one. That sounds better. If you're in the morbid category, sorry for you, but if you're in the super, hey, good job. Good job, buddy. Yeah, literally 25, overweight. What the fuck? All right, well.
Percent who die or go to the hospital. Wouldn't you be a little curious? If you were a news organization, wouldn't you be talking about that fact?
A lot of athletes are actually considered obese because of the way that, like, especially like the big athletes. There's dudes in the NFL and the NBA like work every day that are considered obese because of the way the standard of BMI.
All the time, and yet we're at such a crazy place with obesity. It is the ultimate third rail in discourse. I'm talking about everything you could possibly talk about. That is the ultimate third rail. You just do not talk about it. And of course, we need to talk about it. That's the real epidemic.
Wait, what do you mean we can't
not
talk about it?
Coronavirus.
Oh,
that's going to become, as it has now, I think, become a much more mild disease.
But
and it's going to be with us forever.
All right. Okay. Muscle weighs more fat. That's why I'm like a hard fat. We don't got a lot of jiggle in us. Anyway, yeah, it doesn't discriminate between weight from fat or muscle. Yeah. So the reason for obesity in America specifically seems to be pretty heavily tied to the consumption of cheap processed foods. That's pretty much the overall thing. It's not that Americans tend to be too sedentary. In fact, I would argue that Americans could use more time off from working, even especially if they're manual wage or manual labor, right? I don't think it's an activity thing. It doesn't seem to be, at least in the studies. Although some people obviously they don't like work out, but they're working. They're on their feet. They're doing stuff. They're using energy in some way. Stocking a grocery store, it still burns calories and causes you to do stuff. Working hard in a McDonald's, you're sweating your ass off, moving fast. You're burning calories. I mean, it is what it is. We're driving a fucking Uber, less burning calories, but nonetheless, you're doing it and being active. A lot of it has to do with people's diets, and a lot of people get really calorie dense foods. For a lot of different reasons, but most of it is due to convenience and poverty. Now, not everyone who's impoverished eats like shitty fast food all the time, but a lot of people who do, or who are do. So it just happens, and a lot of the people eat there not only because it's cheap, which is a super big symptom, but it's usually right around the places they work. And for a reason, like that's obviously it's intentional, right? And so if you flood the spaces of employment, which is very near the places of living by necessity, right? A population gets inundated with cheap, fast, easy stuff. And you start having families, and wages don't increase, and you don't have access to health care, and you don't have access to education, and you don't have any like prospects to go somewhere else or to get informed or to do something else. You fall into routines. A lot of people depressy. I mean, like, all of this revolves around the idea of poverty. It's not like, you know, it seems counterintuitive that people who are impoverished won't be able to eat food or something, but a lot of times, like cheap, like a Big Mac or something can be just, it's fucking nice. I didn't have to cook, right? You like French fries, it's happy. It's a little thing that tastes good, even if it's dog shit, right? You can get a Coke or something, you can get a milky shakey, you can get a smoothie now, they got coffee. You know what I mean? It's convenient for people. Now, I don't really eat like that anymore. My problem is physical injuries prevent me from a lot of stuff, but that wasn't because I was a fatty boombalatti. That was because I was too active. So, you know, whatever. We went in the opposite direction. It's like, I just don't think we need to be criminalizing people's body shapes. Or, not criminalizing, obviously. I don't think he's trying to criminalize it. But we don't need to be admonishing them necessarily. You can say, of course it makes sense to say, hey, a healthy diet and exercise is good for you. Not a problem with that. I think everyone's fine. But I don't think you had it coming when you died from COVID is really a good look on anybody. Unless that person actively denied measures like a fucking vaccine, dude. You can't unfat yourself overnight, right? You can't make yourself less old. Okay, you didn't know COVID was coming down the pipe. Now, if you had 10 years to prepare for COVID and it was like, hey, it's only going to kill fatties. Okay, yeah, sure. 100%. I agree. I'd be running. I'd be fasting every once in a while. We do that anyway. But, like, you know, you didn't have time to prepare. No one can just fucking, like, they didn't have it coming, dude. The society is set up to where, and Bill hasn't been poor. Has he ever been poor? He hasn't been poor in a long ass time if he has been poor in his life. He doesn't remember what it's fucking like, dude. I fucking do. I had to eat McDonald's because I worked there. It was the only thing I could fucking afford, bro. I definitely gained weight from that, from poverty. 100% I gained weight from it. Yeah, absolutely. Some people just really can't. True. Little Caesar's a good bang for your buck. Yeah, it tastes like dog shit, in my opinion, but I do order it sometimes because I have nostalgia for it. I make way better pizza, though. I don't know. It's just... Of course, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. Not a goddamn bit of sense.
As all viruses are. It's not going to disappear, I don't think. But the real epidemic is obesity, and that we don't talk about.
I mean, I wonder why you think that is, just out of curiosity, why you think that everybody's scared to talk about it. I mean, I have a theory, but I want to hear yours.
Let's hear yours first.
Okay, sure. So, I mean, my basic theory is that as a society, we've really cracked down very hard on the idea that people have any sort of control over their lives. And whenever you imply that somebody has control over their life and they have a problem and that maybe they can avoid that problem, they get very, very angry at you. And obesity is a great example of this.
Yeah.
Because the vast majority of people who are obese are people who probably should be eating less and creating caloric deficit.
Okay, yeah. They should be eating less and creating caloric deficit. That's absolutely true. There's also reasons that, I mean, they just don't get to. I mean, it happens, right? They could have some sort of mental health issue going on. Obviously, sometimes there's eating disorders involved. Like, I mean, sometimes it's just not someone simply not taking control of their life. And again, it's not an excuse, right? But it is an explanation. And so if that explanation is valid, and it is, then we should go like, okay, so the explanation is there. What do we do with that information? Well, what if we try to offer people access to healthcare, access to education, funded these things, gave them higher wages so that they wouldn't resort to these things, and we stopped funding through lobbying in the government? Like, for instance, a big part of obesity is, again, it's out of necessity. It's not because they're making bad decisions, okay? It's out of necessary decisions, trying to feed themselves and their families and things like that a lot of the time. And then it just becomes habit, right? A lot of that becomes habit. But, like, McDonald's lobbied the American government to allow food stamps to be used at McDonald's, and so it can purchase hot food. It's one of the few caveats. Many of these are because of lobbying efforts. It's one of the few caveats you can do to get hot food with your WIC card or whatever you call it. Yeah. And so, do you not think that contributes? Do you think maybe if we had community gardens that were free of charge and it provided produce for communities, a socialist thing, do you think that we would have a higher or lower consumption of vegetables in the community, which are a low calorie, often calorie deficit style food source, right? Do you think that we would have a better rate of nutrition in the world, or in the country at least, if we, had fresh meals given to our children instead of the dog shit they serve in public schools, Ben? Do you think if we funded those things? Or do you think that only people that can afford to send their kids to private schools should be able to have the good meals and the poors just get what they get, and then you can yell at them when they're fatties, when they've been fed nothing but carbs and fucking sugar and high fat content, so they feel a little fulfilled with their meals? Throughout, like have you ever looked at a fucking school lunch here and then looked at one in like Japan? There is a reason that there's a systemic issue with this, and it has to do with capitalism at the root of it. Consumers will choose, and children will choose, what is available to them when they're hungry, right? Whatever is cheapest and easiest to get. If you instead of having McDonald's, you had produce stands and it cost the exact same amount, right? They had like a $1 menu for different produce and stuff, and they would give you hot food with fresh produce for the same price as McDonald's. You get a beautiful, delicious sandwich, right? Of course they would go, because it'd be fresh and delicious and it'd make them feel good and they would like the taste. But it's capitalism preventing these things. Surprise. And then, of course, there's just some people that like to eat food and they're fatties. They get to do that. They don't, you get to choose to be a fatty boombalatti. I'm sorry. You get to. It's freedom. And then they get to be like, well, it kills me when you fucking don't wear a mask. Could you wear a mask around me? Not to say you have to wear a mask around all the fatties, but it's not the fatties that cause coronavirus, is it? They just had to adapt to it. So I think it seems pretty decent to wear a fucking mask and get a vaccine.
You silver-tongued it beautifully, Ben. I was just going to say they love to stuff their face, but it's really the same idea, isn't it? Yes, I mean,
No,
that's... But we are in a different place with it than we were even 5 years ago. 5 years ago, it at least was thought to be a good thing to try to lose weight, right? Now, that's what they shame.
Right, exactly.
Adele.
Right.
Famously lost weight, and they shamed her for that. That's through the...
That's not they shaming anybody. Most lefties don't care. They just went viral for a second. You guys are... These old motherfuckers are so susceptible to that kind of clickbaity shit, dude. Like, that was barely a discourse. It happened. People were like, oh, she was, it did happen. There wasn't, I don't know about shaming. Maybe it was shaming. It was reverse VAT shaming for a second. It actually did happen, but it was very few people. It was just a weird thing. It was like part of some weird Adele fandom or whatever that was also super, like, stake their entire personalities on body positivity because Adele was a chubby person, and then Adele decided to diet a little bit because she was blessed with the ability to have, the funds and like a personal trainer, and like she talked about her issues with weight and stuff, and there was like a handful of people on like a fucking Instagram post being like, oh my god, but like that's not like an example of the left's fucking ideas on stuff. He's just a boomer and thinks, oh, he saw it there. That must mean that's what the fun, that's the trendy thing the kids think now. It's like, nah, dog. We have differing opinions. So odd.
The looking glass. When you're the bad person because you lost weight, and it's just seen as a different way of living. There's no judgment to it. And look, I don't believe in...
I think that was misogyny way more than it was fucking, like, wokeism, dude. Like, internalized at least.
Shaming. I'm not fat shaming. I'm fat splaining. I'm splaining that, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, absolutely. But science is not. Science is not. And those facts are unforgiving when you look at the number of people who died. And you didn't even have to be that much overweight to have a much worse outcome, having to go to the hospital, having to get ventilated. I think 40% of the people who died had diabetes. And again, even take COVID out of the picture.
Yep.
So 60%
I was talking
that
about,
died didn't. Sounds like the diabeteses were, a little bit stronger, in my opinion.
this before COVID and got lambasted by James Corden and other people who attacked me. Oh, Bill, you're such a bad person. I'm not shaming people. I'm just saying we were never going to solve the healthcare crisis in this country until we get our arms around this thing.
Again, the answer to the problem is absolutely the way that we approach nutrition towards poor folks and like public institutions. That's it. I grew up eating poor food my whole life. In the Midwest, McDonald's was a fucking treat. Then I had to work there. Definitely gained weight there. I was a skinny guy. And then my ankle got hurt. And I'm still working at McDonald's, but I don't have the literal physical pain tolerance to work out while I'm doing that. And now it's fucked forever. So any long-term, interaction with that fucks me up. And so it's like, what do? I can't afford to get my ankle replaced, Bill. So it's like, yeah, I got to take incremental steps towards it. And now I'm in this position, finally, where, we can start to make better decisions than we have been. So it's like, this is what it is. Sometimes you make bad decisions.
And
sometimes
we're
you want
not
to eat some
allowed
nachos.
to talk about it, or else you're a bad person. And anyone who doesn't, I'm sorry, you have blood on your hands. Anyone in the media who doesn't talk about this because you're so afraid of the reaction, you have blood on your hands because you're not doing these people a favor. You're not doing people a favor. Like I always say, ever see a fat 90-year-old? Never. Shouldn't that tell you something? I mean, you're either going to die fast from COVID, especially if you're not vaccinated from this, or slowly.
They definitely exist.
And also,
I mean, it's not really up for debate, right? We're not talking about the debate on whether or not fucking it does help to be in shape. Also, sometimes people that are in shape just fucking drop dead, dog. What if I don't want to live to 90? What if I want to live to fucking, 70? My grandma made it to 92. She was pleasantly plump. Mine made it to 89, I think, somewhere in there.
It's going to bring down, as it was before this, the economy of the country. Because, when we were debating health care in this country for years, and Obamacare and on after, it was always about, we would look at the charts, we would see how much health care spending is going up, and people would say, we can't do it. We can't just not do anything, right? Whether you thought Obamacare was a good idea or some other program, we need some program to deal with this. But never part of that program was, let's ask the people to participate in their own health.
People participating in their own health is fantastic. Okay, it's a good thing. I'm not anti do some health stuff, okay? But what you're saying is for people with varying degrees of things that keep them from doing so, simply overcome those things, you fool. Do you think that there are folks out there, okay, Bill, that I used to be an athlete with an athlete's body. I am now an ex-athlete with someone who is forced to be more sedentary than he'd like to. I have now have that body. And it's like when I think back, could you eat different things? Absolutely, of course. Why do you eat certain things? Some people cope in certain ways. Some people just like certain things. Some people only enjoy, like, really kind of, you can't have safe food. That's not my problem, though. Do you want to know what my problem is? My biggest problem with food and everything like that? Quite literally not being able to fucking move around on my ankle without it snapping off. That's the one, right? That's like the biggest thing. Yes, sometimes we can make like perfect decisions, but I don't know, man. Your boy eats a lot of nutritious foods. Like, sometimes we don't make good decisions all the time, but like, you shouldn't have to live optimally 100% of the time. Enjoy yourself every once in a while. Eat something with some cheese on it. But I don't know. I'm going to make some like vegan meatballs soon, or maybe like a, I don't know, vegan lasagna or something. I don't know. It's going to be vegan though. It's good. And not out of any sort of like moral protest. It's just because I really like vegetables. And like, the only thing I could do is add more activity, which I try to do sometimes when it's able to be done, right? Like, some people don't have that, and some people are way too busy. Most people who are obese are poor, and that's a fact. And I definitely gained weight through poverty. It seems counterintuitive. It's not. Most people I know in poverty gain weight. Most of them. It's just so interesting that it's not really interesting, I guess. It's just sad that like these fucking millionaires sit here and talk like that.
I think this is what you were getting at.
Yep.
We don't ask people to, you have to participate. It can't all just be, the government can't solve this
Of course not.
on their own. Vaccines can't solve this on their own. You have to do it. I said at one point, it's not between you and the government. It's between you and the waitress.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the areas where it's sort of fascinating. The way that we've treated in public policy vaccines with, for example, vax mandates. You must get the vax or you will lose your job. And at the same time, if I so much as say to you that you...
Hey, how about this? If Bill Maher agrees to pay for all my medical expenses, I mean, I'll run a marathon. I'll be a nice little skinny boy. I'll do it ASAP, dude. My feet were fucked from birth. I didn't even have a choice. I didn't have a choice, dude. I was born with clubbed ass feet. They were turned in and shit. They broke my fucking feet. Put them in cast. I take my first steps in cast. And now my Achilles are trashed. 15 minutes. Like, it is... Sucks, man. It hurts. It hurts like a motherfucker. I love basketball, though, and I played a lot of it. I'm getting a basketball court, too. We're putting it in the backyard. I'm going to do it anyway. And it sucks because, obviously, like, if you carry more weight around, it doesn't help your ankle when you walk around. So it's like... It's a feedback loop. So I'd have to like really, really not eat. I have to be at quite a deficit. Like, we're talking maybe 1,400 calories a day, 1,200 calories a day, which ain't shit. If I wanted to like actively lose weight when not being able to work out and stuff. And to take up swimming in my pool.
You might need to lose 10 pounds. This is the great sin. Like, I don't see how you can hold both of those ideas in your head at the same time.
Although I do want a pool, but I don't have pool money, dude.
We all do something.
We could probably get
Again, not shaming. I drank too much for years. But when someone would say to me, maybe you should scale that back a little, I didn't say, how dare you? You're drink shaming me. It's just an alternative lifestyle. What are you talking about? I'm just as wonderful and perfect the way No, I would say, yeah, you know what? You're right.
I don't think being a fatty is the same thing as being an alcoholic. Unless you become a big asshole when you eat nuggies. If you get fucked up on some nuggies and you start acting like a fool, all right. But it's other than that, I don't think it's the same. If you get nug drunk, dude, you ever been nug drunk? A lot of people say it's tequila and it makes them go crazy. It's not. It's nuggies for me.
And then I wouldn't do it, but but I would at least accede the point. I wasn't offended by that. I was like, yeah, you're right. I drink probably too Irishly, and I shouldn't. But boy, you're just the bad guy if you say that about food.
So in a second, I want to ask you about how that kind of ties into broader issues of identity politics. But
that's really just not the same thing, man. I think being a fatty is just such a different thing. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, huh? Please stop aging, Bill. No. We want him to age more rapidly. It's like a roller coaster. You got to a certain peak and it's just like, just finish the ride.
First, since we're talking about your imminent death, let's talk about life insurance. If somebody relies on your financial support, whether it's a child, an aging parent, even a business partner.
Don't care.
Beautiful.
So let's talk about identity politics. So one of the things I think that we're speaking about here is the attempt to turn everything into an identity. And so if you are Adele is bad because she shed her identity as an overweight singer for a new identity as just a singer who's not overweight.
This is stupid.
And there's this feeling about nearly everything in American life. Everything can be boiled down to an issue of identity. And the problem with that, of course, on a broader political level is once everything's an identity, including your political perspective, every political argument becomes an attack on you as a person. Because if your identity is your politics, and then I disagree with your politics, that's not us having a rational debate. That's me attacking your character. That's me saying you're a bad person. It's me trying to
You literally say these things, though. What do you mean? He doesn't like what? He says leftists are like evil all the time. What do you mean? I think that's so fucking funny. I think it's so fucking funny that he said that. Well, I'm not saying you're a bad person when I call you evil.
Person you hear this sort of language all the time in a variety of issues. You're trying to erase me as a human being. If I disagree with you, obviously the most obvious example is on transgenderism, where the argument is that if you don't
again
want Leah Thomas, the biologically male swimmer swimming against women, this is because you're trying to erase Leah Thomas's transgender identity. Like once everything becomes an identity, even putting that as example aside, then it prohibits you from actually having rational conversations with people. The entire basis of rational conversation is my identity doesn't matter. What I'm arguing up here with you is what matters.
Yeah, I would agree with all that, but I would ask you if you would agree that there's certainly a lot of that on the right too. What is more of an identity than the Trump voter, the white person who?
Oh, that's a good point. I was gonna say that too about the Trump people. I was like, hey, MAGA hats. What do you mean, bro?
Thinks that America is being taken away and becoming a different kind of country, then they remember it. You know, let's make America great again, wink, wink, white again. I mean, that is also a type of identity politics, yes?
I mean, for the people who actually believe that,
well,
sure.
A lot of people.
I mean,
oh, Ben, you fucking slime ball, dude. You see how he fucking slithered out from underneath that like some sort of fucking slug? God, dude. Well, if you really believe that, fuck off.
But I wonder how much of that is reading into somebody else's politics.
Oh my fucking God! Oh Jesus! If Bill doesn't fucking hit him with the just hey Ben, come on, what are you doing?
Your desired,
stop him.
Character flaw. Meaning you see that on the right doing that to the left too. I mean, there have been good studies showing that people on the right tend to think that people on the left don't care about family. People on the left don't care about personal values. And then when you actually ask people on the left what they care about a lot of those things.
Right.
And on the left, you see the same thing with the right. If you voted for Trump, it's because you want to make America white again. It's not because you're concerned about, for example, taking the immigration issue. Let's say you're not concerned about the race of immigration. You're worried about how people are going to vote once they move here and how that changes the legal structure of the system. Or you're worried about the income level or education level of people moving here.
The income level? You're worried about the income level? Oh, why would that worry you, Ben? Sheesh. The education level. No dummies. Assuming, of course, if you come from Mexico, you're a poor dumbass who is brown. You're a poor brown dumbass. That's what Ben Shapiro thinks if you come from another country. Jesus fucking Christ.
Those are not the same thing as the skin color of the person. So
No, and immigration is an issue where I think the Democrats are really not getting it. I mean, they're losing the Hispanic vote.
It's an amazing thing.
Along the border in Texas. Their idea, again, it's sort of your point about identity politics. Their conception, I think, and it's wrong, is that every Latino in America is thinking, boy, more immigration. That would be the best thing. And a lot of them are thinking, no, I'm here.
Yeah.
The last thing I want is someone else coming over who's going to do my job for a little less money.
Huh. I wonder what caused this crabs in a bucket situation. It is true. All the Browns have the same exact skill set. They are here to do the menial tasks that Bill does not wish to do. But he will, of course, as the capitalist, he will absolutely betray you and your loyalty to his family if he can find a cheaper servant.
And, I wonder when this is going to sink in the Democratic Party leadership.
I think it's going to be very difficult for them because I think that there is a sort of math that was done in the early part of the 20th century.
Well, as a Latino, Bill Maher gets to speak on their behalf. That's true.
With people like Roy Teixeira writing about this, talking about how there was this...
I love how they spelled Teixeira here. That is not how you spell that last name.
New emerging Democratic majority. It was going to be a majority-minority coalition as the demographics of the country changed and became less white. Inevitably, these minority groups would continue to vote at the same rates that they were voting for Democrats. So if you get more Hispanics, you get more black voters, you get more Asian voters, inevitably this would be sort of the new rising wave.
Oh, no.
And Obama really did model that in 2012. He had a very diverse coalition combined with college-educated white liberals. And so they thought this was going to be the formula here on out, and that was always going to...
I mean, we cannot cynically look at the Democratic, look at how diverse we are play, if we don't also cynically look at how the Republican Southern strategy works. Like, what? Come on, man.
Going to be the formula. And it turns out the guy who wrote that piece, he came out recently and he said, yeah, I got that completely wrong. It's just not true because the Hispanic vote, it turns out, is malleable. A lot of people...
The Hispanic vote is Catholic as fuck. What are you... like, I don't think that... Do Democrats actually we're not Democrats here, okay? We have a little bit of a better opinion, okay? Do Democrats actually think that the Mexican folks and Hispanic votes in general are traditionally just very, very lefty? I have found in my experience with first, second, third generation Hispanic folks, because we happen to have a decent population of people, specifically from Mexico, in Michigan for seasonal work, and then obviously the community's engaged in their, just as mixed in as anybody else. Because Michigan is, a lot of people think Michigan is just like a tundra with white folks in it, which really it's not. It's very, very diverse. The tundra with white folks in it is actually Wisconsin. There's no black folks there. It's gross. And oh god, there's no whiter fucking person than someone from North Dakota though, so at least they're not that white. Anyway, or fucking Idaho. Ugh, so white, chalky, dude. I don't know. Dems, if they're thinking like that, no wonder they lose.
People who are Hispanic identify as white Hispanic, right? A lot of people who are Hispanic don't think of themselves primarily in terms.
You like being white? I mean, it's cool. I've been white my whole life. It's been fine. I don't have any other experience, but yeah, it's been fine.
Of a certain racial identity that dictates politics. They may vote differently. Cuban Americans don't vote the same way that Venezuelan Americans vote, who don't vote the same way that Mexican Americans vote. The question is whether they're so tied into this sort of intersectional coalition where everybody is described based on their race, as opposed to a broad platform that anybody can ascribe to no matter what, that they can't get out of that sort of mindset. And it feels like sort of, I mean, I think that's the disappointment of Biden in some ways. Biden was supposed to be a moderate who was above all that, and he really hasn't governed that way.
Right. And they assimilate quickly, very quickly. And then, they're like, well, I made it, and I'm sorry, but I'm pulling up the ladder.
What? What the fuck? I can't believe that he would make I made it, so I'm pulling up the ladder reference when he's a fucking capitalist. What the fuck are you talking about? You're mad at poor fat people.
Because if I leave the ladder down, then again, you're going to come in and take my job. And I don't identify that way. I'm an American now. And that's sort of what we want. I can't remember where I read this recently, but somebody wrote an article and said that the Hispanic vote is starting to look a lot like what happened with the Italian vote.
Yep. Or the Germans, or the Irish, or everybody except the Jews who just kept voting Democrat forever.
Right.
But yes.
But didn't the Italian...
Well, I mean, of those groups, only one of them faced systemic destruction. And maybe they had enough familial experience to not become a Shapiro-like individual.
Become much more of a Republican bloc. And, I mean, that could happen. And if the Democrats lose that, they're in a lot of trouble. Because that is a rising Democratic as far as numbers. And if that number even becomes like 50-50, I mean, it's funny because it was only a few years ago that people were saying, oh, well, the Republicans are cooked.
Right.
Because look at the numbers. The whites are going down and the people of color. And, of course, if the people of color are going up, but they're voting the wrong way, as far as the Democrats are concerned, then you're really in a lot of trouble as far as winning elections, which I assume is what they're still trying to do.
Yeah, and I mean, this is why I think wokeness is such electoral poison for Democrats, not just because it's treating people as members of
I would really love to know what he thinks wokeness is.
Identity groups that they may not see as their
chief identity politics is wokeness?
But also because, to a certain extent, they're only...
I thought it was identity politics.
...appealing to certain identity groups. I think that...
What identity groups? Bro, maybe other communities treat this a little bit differently, dude. But you don't have to be anything to be in here. You just gotta not be stuff. And that's basically just an asshole. Don't be an asshole. Okay, you're in. Because that's all it takes. Don't have any asshole opinions. Don't be an asshole. That's the whole thing. And if you are an asshole, have the courage to talk about it a little bit. And have the courage to have your mind changed. That's pretty much it. We have some people that used to be assholes that aren't assholes anymore. That's fine too. I don't know, man. Wokeness is bad left on you. I don't know what this means. I don't know what wokeness means to them. They say critical race theory, wokeness, SJWs, fucking BLM. It's always some sort of fucking buzzword, bro. Can you just explain to me what you don't like? As a leftist, I think I agree with you on almost everything. Well, I mean, because it's like not hard to get answers out of stuff. Like, it just seems so fucking easy. People are hungry. Why? Because they don't have food. Why don't they have it? Because they can't afford it. Why can't they afford it? Because no one gets paid shit. Okay? So that from 2 points, you have 2 answers to that question. If you're a reasonable person. One of them is capitalist. It depends on if you're a capitalist or not. If you're a capitalist, even if you're a Republican, you go, okay, if people can't afford food, we should make food affordable one way or the other. Whether you give people more money or you make it cheaper. Easy. But the problem with capitalism is how markets work and how greed works. Or you can just be not a capitalist, an anti-capitalist. You don't have to be necessarily a communist or a socialist or a leftist. You're just not for capitalism. Although I assume you would be the opposite of that at some point. So you don't have to be like a full anti-capitalist. You just got to be a little bit. You got to be like, well, maybe we could just like decommodify food. You just got to, that's it. I didn't say decommodify fucking PS5s. I didn't say decommodify Red Bulls or cigarettes or weed or Taco Bell. I said decommodify food. Taco Bell doesn't count as food. We all know it. Like produce and shit. Milk, eggs, bread. Including soy milk. Okay? I think we need to... this is not a joke. I actually think we need to cater to vegans and so... Like, if you're actually worried about... people's obesity, you make all vegetables, like produce, free, and all things that we consider basics free. So your cheeses, your milkies, your eggies, your breads, apples, onions, simple deli shit. Now you could serve other stuff that you do charge for, but there's some aspect of it that shouldn't. If you do care about obesity, you make that shit free, it'll work itself out because the poors will be eating fucking salads, all right? And you'll only be able to spend money on the stuff that isn't nutritious, and it'll work itself out real quick. And everyone will just get more nutritious. I don't mind if there's a market for some foods. Why do we have to have everything or nothing? We don't. We don't have to. We can have a mixed system and then work our way towards stuff as we need to decommodify things in the future. That's fine too. Escalating decommodification is probably the model, right? It makes the most sense.
There are a lot of Hispanics in America who looked at the platform of Black Lives Matter in 2020, which said, get rid of the cops don't need to be here, defund the police.
Yes.
And there are a lot of Hispanics who are saying, wait a second, I'm upwardly mobile economically. I'm socially mobile. I also may live in an area that has high crime. This does not seem like a good plan to me. And so moving in terms of this agenda and making this kind of tip.
I will say, though, any calls for the like defunding of police without any systemic change to mitigate the cause of crime obviously is stupid, right? Like if you just got rid of cops and kept everything else the same, it would be worse over time. But only because the vacuum of power left by cops would be filled by somebody else, most likely with less ethical scruples. That said, some communities would get way better. But I think overall it would be worse. And that's only because capitalism and the governments that run capitalism require an arm of violence to make the laborers in the system continue to do labor, right? I think most commies fucking understand this to some degree, right? But and that's the police. The police, they criminalize homelessness, so you can't even choose to be poor. They criminalize, any sort of. They criminalize lots of forms of poverty. Does Ben Ken ever think in any new? Well, we got there close. We got close to a sentence. Do I think Ben can ever think with? Ben can't think with nuance. At least he thinks through a very specific. Like he read Ayn Rand. He read like Atlas Shrugged when he was a kid, and that is pretty much the only thing he's ever thought of ever since. Like he is thinking only of the perspective of someone with upward mobility within the capitalist structure, right? He's like, oh, we're middle class. We have the ability to move around, and then these poors are keeping us back. It's like when you crab bucket everybody, when you make everybody fight over the same resources, right? Like poor people are forced to. Like rent is like apartments, a living space is a great example. Like scrapping and clawing to get these apartments that are actually affordable. Packing as many roommates as you can stand to have so you can afford it the best. And like, it's just a bad living situation. If instead we provided everybody with the dignity of a decommodified housing unit, a nice single or double apartment or something, just enough for 1 to 4 people, right? Enough for like a small family. That's really all you need, dude. If you simply did that, conservatives would get their wish. More people would have families. If you're not spending any money on fucking rent, certainly you're spending it on other stuff that you need, which makes everybody healthier and happier. And eventually you're looking for a house because you've had the ability to, over time, not have rent bending, like pressing down on you. The pressures of meeting rent is very high, especially for people without many means. Like, I remember being crazy poor. We were in rent adjusted, like it was adjusted to our wages, so we had to like prove how much money we made when we gave them rent. Sometimes, like every 6 months or something, they had to get an updated like wages thing. Like, oh, did you get a raise? And then you raise rent. It was so fucking stupid. Hey, thanks, the Avant Gardener. I appreciate that so much. Giving the homeless homes works. Of course it does. Of course it does, right? It makes no sense. And not even the homeless. I mean, every American person should have access to decommodified housing for whenever they need it. Whenever they need it. Right? That's not to say I want no commodified housing. You can have luxury apartments still. You can opt into your house. I would still pay my mortgage. You know what I mean? No reason at all. I just don't really eat instead. See, exactly.
Of the spear.
We have
the
empty
argument
houses
for a
too.
lot of
Well,
his
yeah, exactly. It'd be like a system where, hey, if we want to get people living, we could turn these houses into places where people can live. Absolutely. You'd have to have oversight on that.
That America is a deeply racist, unfixable place. That doesn't apply to a lot of people. It's an argument that really applies.
No one says this is unfixable. What the fuck? No, I don't understand. Literally, it's leftists are quite literally giving prescriptive, like, hey, we should fix the country. It's deeply racist. It's not an unfixable, deeply racist country. The country has deep roots in racism. That's not the only problem it has. It's one of the biggest, but not the biggest. It's capitalism. But when you say, hey, maybe if you stop doing this for this community and you stop doing this and you know, whatever it might be, we could talk about all the different issues the black community faces. We do not have to right now. But simply when the black community says, hey, this is fucked up, and you go, no, it isn't. What do you expect, Ben? It is fixable. Quite literally, it's fixable if you just were a decent human. It's okay, simple cat girl. Appreciate you.
Applies to a very narrow segment of the American population.
No, I always say, let's live in the year.
What incentive? Okay, real question. What incentive would there be to build the decommodified housing? What's stopping people from just building only luxury housing in an area? Well, first, the number one incentive is you can't build a luxury house unless someone can buy it from you, right? The point, like, you don't make them because you like them. You make them because you want people to have them and take them from you. And there's not enough people with that kind of money that can do that in most places, right? So decommodified housing, the benefit of having decommodified housing in a capitalist system, in a system where you change nothing else. Like, obviously, I would do the other things, healthcare, education, food, etc. But if you did nothing else but rent, like you don't allow people basically to have what I would consider like menial or basic, we'll call it basic, probably basic rentals, not allowed. You can't rent a basic like fucking apartment, or you can't rent it out, right? Like, it's free. It's just free. If you want a better apartment, maybe a 3-bedroom, something with a big kitchen or something, there's options out there. Go rent something. Absolutely. But nobody should be turned away due to their space and capitalism. And this is for 2 reasons. Well, many more reasons, but 2 major reasons, I'm sure. Number one is you want everybody to have a certain level of dignity in the world, or you get classism, you breed classism. And although we're not getting rid of capitalism in the scenario where we get rid of rental like that, like really basic living situations, single rooms, 2 rooms, basically is what I'm talking about. And you could just convert rentals into that. We don't have to build anything, right? We just convert rentals into that and basically have the government, this is how it would work in my head, the government, the federal government or the state government, but likely the federal government and then through the state would manage them individually. You wouldn't want to have the feds involved with that, but the feds would fund it basically. The country funds it due to taxes and things like that. And you basically just say, okay, we're doing a reverse mortgage on the property for whoever owns the apartment complex. Like I keep pointing over here because I have some, quite literally like projects, kind of like those style apartments, that Section 8 stuff. whoever owns that reverse mortgage, you can stay on and be the landlord, or someone else will tend it for you and be like a steward of the land, and you get paid as a government employee. Landlords, you don't have to just do the fucking, you know how landlords are. There's a reason there's a meme about them being shitty. It's because they're shitty. But if they had some incentive, like obviously landlords, some of them are very, very wealthy. But let's be real, some landlords are also very, very poor. And it's just a symptom of like, it's the only thing they have for survival. And I don't blame some landlords for existing. It happens. Sometimes maybe it's like their only shot for financial security is to have this land that they bought at some point, and it was an opportunity, and it happens. But a lot of landlords are shitty fucking people, but nonetheless they get that opportunity to have the land basically be taken. But nonetheless, the idea is once you federalize it, you can set standards for it, and if the standards aren't met, you fix it because it has the federal backing. It's not all in the feet of the fucking landlord because, again, individuals and their own money often can't solve problems that would be solved systemically through decommodified housing as community, right? So if the community has decommodified housing, the second reason you do this is because if every single person in your country is guaranteed by right of birth that they will have access to dignified housing that they can be safe in, that they can wash in, that they can keep their things in, that they can make a home for a period of time. They could be forever or just a few years for a month. Doesn't matter. If they have access to that, your mental health is going to be better. Your actual physical safety is going to be better. Your sleep is going to be better. You're going to be able to perform at your job and your work, or not just your workplace, but your education place if you go to get an education, which is why I would couple this with education. But I mean, it just creates an environment throughout the entire country that allows people to have dignity. It starts to erase the classist behavior, because a lot of the reasons that people turn to crime via poverty is because of the threat of homelessness and the threat of not having dignity or whatever you need to be happy or safe or fulfilled or whatever. A lot of crime is driven by the necessity to meet rent or eat food or get drugs, which again, healthcare would help that. And so it's just a trickle up. It's a trickle up effect. If you rise the base level of living conditions for everybody moves up. And of course, think about what you would have done. We looked at the average cost of rent in America. It was like $1,200 or something. Average cost of rent in America. It's nuts. It's way too much. We went by state, I guess. I think Michigan's pretty good, actually. Let's look at it. Highest rent is Hawaii at $1,600. Lowest rent is Virginia. Let's just say Virginia. The lowest average rent is Virginia. Or West Virginia. If you lived in West Virginia, it's average $725 a month. Did you know the average rent in Virginia is more expensive than my mortgage per month? But I was fortunate enough to be able to have enough money for a down payment at one point. Imagine if you could save just $700 flat dollars every month. $700. So $1,400. So $7,000 plus 14 more, right? So $8,400, $8,400. Is my math correct on that? $8,400 a year. I think that's correct. Imagine, by the way, 14 months roughly. 14 months by saving $700 a month by not spending any money on rent. 14 months of that will afford a down payment for a pretty cheap house with a decent mortgage and a decent price. So 14 months in dignified housing would afford you a pretty good down payment on a not shit house. Seriously. So, do you think more people would have families? Do you think more people would have homes? Do you think more people would take pride in their work if they had homes because they could afford them? Do you think that they would be better employees if they were happier at home and safe and had enough food in their bellies and had opportunities to go get free education and didn't have crime everywhere because people weren't desperate and they weren't fighting with their neighbors for resources because they were provided the basics to not need. They were provided the lack of a bucket. The bucket was taken away, and the crabs were allowed to just spend time on the beach. That's really what it is. Instead, this edifice of commodification of everything has created a bucket that we all sit in. That's it. I'm done with the video. I don't want to watch a single minute more of it. And what's the time on it? Do the unders have it? The unders do have it. 24:56. Sorry, overs. Sorry, overs. I don't make it 30 minutes into this video. It's over. I was rooting for you. I really thought maybe we could get there. I just can't do it. They're so bad. Coward. Yeah, tired man. Broken by the world.